Good morning and happy Friday. I haven't been around for a while because we've been busy with the COVID-19 and the government response to that. So helping people apply for the Paycheck Protection loans and the emergency injury disaster loans. But here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to do if you did get funded through the Paycheck Protection so that you get that forgiven. So there's a few things that you want to keep track of in that process so that you get that money forgiven. So right now, if you have been funded or you have an SBA number, the process is going to be you then get loan docs from your local bank, sign those, and then they'll fund you, put the money in your account, and it's an actual loan until it's forgiven. So you need to track certain things, and then in 8 weeks from the day that funds were put in your account, that's when you're going to apply for forgiveness, and then the documentation needed for that needs to be submitted. So I'll add to the description after I hop off here about what are those things that you need to do to be tracking so that you have the loan forgiven. And the forgiveness portion, so typically if you get debt, if you have debt and that's forgiven in some way, shape, or form, that would be income to you and taxable. But this is not taxable. That's part of what the emergency, not emergency, but part of the law that was written in the CARES Act is that this forgiveness would not be taxable. So we still need to record it on your financial statements. It'll need to be reported on your tax return, but it is going to be forgiven, or a portion of it's going to be forgiven. So things to keep in mind is the number of employees that you have on your application. So if you wrote 15 employees on your application, because at that time you had 15 employees, you're going to be reporting that number at the end of the 8-week period as well when you apply for forgiveness. So the things that they want is they want you to keep your number of employees, and then they're going to track the dollar amounts of payroll that were part of this 8-week period too. So for our organization, we got the money on the 7th of April. And so from that point, we're going to track how much we're paying out over the next 8 weeks from that date. So if you had a payroll date right before the day you were funded, or a few days before you were funded, take some time and make sure that you're going to be paying out at least 75% of that full amount in funding. So say that you got $100,000, 75,000 of that needs to be paid out in payroll. And what payroll is defined as is compensation, including sick, holiday, any benefits like that. It excludes those things that qualify under the, I can't think of it, the Families First Act that was passed the week before the CARES Act, where you as the employer are going to get reimbursed for those people who are missing work because of COVID-19, whether they have symptoms themselves or whether they're missing work because they have to take care of somebody who has those things. So if they qualify for those things, that can't be included into what is considered wages, but everything else can be. And then your benefits and your 401k paid out of there. So some banks are encouraging you to set up a separate account, set up a separate checking account, and to pay directly out of there for the health insurance, the 401k, or other retirement benefits, as well as your payroll, so that you keep it really clean and really separate. And that'll help ease the process of proving out that you sent that information. So you could set up a separate account. That's what's included is wages, payroll, benefits, and that has to be 75% of your loan amount. And then to qualify for forgiveness. And then the other things that you can use that money for is rent and utilities. So if you have a lease payment that you pay, you're going to have to supply the lease upon forgiveness so that they can prove that that was in existence prior to the event and prior to the funding. And then you're also going to need from your landlord proof of rent payments. So during that 8-week period, so we were funded on April 7th, so we will make a rent payment on May 1st, and then June 1st will also be in that period of 8 weeks from funding. And then so we can use those to offset some of those dollars as well as our utilities and anything that's paid there. So those are the things that you can track against or use in your forgiveness calculation for the Paycheck Protection Program. So the SBA did run out of funding, so the $329 billion has been exhausted as of yesterday morning. They stopped taking applications. So if you don't already have an SBA number, you are not going to get through the process in this round of legislative funding. Doesn't mean that you won't ever get funded. They are working on another piece of legislation. So there's the Families First Act, there's the CARES Act, and they are working on another piece of legislation. What that looks like, we won't know until it actually comes out. But if you haven't been funded or have an SBA number, the process has now come to a stop because the whole $329 billion has been used up by small businesses, which is great because that means we're getting money into the hands. So it was first come, first serve. That's how they process those things. If you worked with a local bank, be sure to give them a shout out because they really worked their tails off in getting as many applications and as much dollars into the hands of small business owners as possible. I know my friends who are bankers were working many hours to get that through the process, and all new stuff that they've never experienced before. They've never had to look at payroll reports before. They've never had to process the information that they were now being asked to, and they stepped up and did that for you. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me on this page, or you can call me or email me, and I can help you through that process as well. So we've been through it with a dozen or so clients, and we're just here to help. I'll also put footnotes in the description, and we'll be on our email next week. We'll talk about what you need to track to make sure that you're giving the max amount forgiven in this paycheck protection. So stay home, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.